So I've not had the best last 2 seasons, so we're going to try and discuss some top tips to make sure you get a higher rank that maybe even I have forgotten to follow. So I've been evaluating my last 2 seasons, and unfortunately for me, I've not had the best last 2 seasons compared to the 4 seasons before it. Now, I came onto the YouTube scene with game week ranks of 24k, 10k, 21k and 10k, 4 years on the trot. But however, 2019-20 I saw a rank of 465k, and then last year I had a rank of 89k, which is of course a massive improvement on the 465k, but still it's not reaching the heavy heights that I managed to reach the 4 seasons before my drop in form. So what I have noticed is a few things have changed in the way I play from when I was successful to now, and we're going to discuss that and the tips I'm giving you guys in how to play the game your own way to try and get as good rank, to try and get as successful a rank as you possibly can. We're going to start off by restricting unnecessary transfers. Now, unfortunately for me, I have taken a lot of hits over the last 2 seasons. Now, some of that is to do with the fact that I've been chasing rank because, of course, I'm wanting to reach at least similar, or if not better ranks than I had done previously. And maybe the pressure of that has made me make some decisions that would have been better off being left alone, because eventually those players that I did have did return after I'd transferred them out. Now, the easiest way to demonstrate this is by looking at the goalkeepers. Now, last season, Martinez, of course, at 4.5 million at Aston Villa, was the best goalkeeping option in the game for the majority of the season. Now, fortunately for me, this is one of the decisions that I made and stuck with for the large majority of the 2020-21 season. But you can see here, he got 186 points and raised up to 5.3 million. In comparison, the next closest keeper to him was Meslier at 154 points. Again, he wouldn't have been a bad choice to stick in your goal and forget about. Then you have Lloris at 5.6 and Pope at 5.5 at 149 and 144. And then you have Mendy at 140. He is the keeper I changed to when Tuchel came in and Chelsea's defence seemingly improved. However, the issue was Mendy had a blank game week and he was rotated with Kepa. Now, if I'd stuck with Martinez, potentially I wouldn't have had the headache in game week 36, which was a blank game week, of then going to Alex McCarthy. So I had Alex McCarthy and Fraser Forster, which, to be honest, isn't the best goalkeeping pair at a club, because Southampton, although they did improve at the end of the season, weren't the greatest defensive side. And Martinez probably would have been a better choice to stick with, although Mendy did get me some clean sheet points when Martinez did fail there. So my goal for this season is, unless absolutely necessary, say on a wildcard, I am not going to change my goalkeeper or potentially other positions as long as that player is playing. Another example I could give you guys is Stuart Dallas. If I'd just stuck with him for the majority of the season, I'd have been laughing. However, he had a little dry patch, and I seem to forget that I got him in at 4.5 million, and I transferred him out. And then, of course, he went on a great run of a couple of games where he got some significant points, which would have really helped certain game weeks in my season, but I'd moved on to elsewhere. And then, of course, I wanted him back. The same happened with Patrick Bamford, who I probably should have stuck with as one of my strikers for the majority of the season, but I kept leaving and going back to because I thought I could find something better elsewhere. I also had Cresswell, again, one of the highest scoring defenders in the game, and I transferred him out for some strange reason. Another defender I had in this list was Cancelo, but there is a different reason for me having transferred him out, because he, of course, was being rotated and I wanted some more nailed-on options. But the fact that I owned, at one point in the game, both Dallas and Cresswell, and I moved off of them, seems to be a bad decision now looking at it with hindsight. So now we move on to the second tip, and it is avoid outcome bias. Now, unfortunately for me, I have a bad tendency of making transfers, and then when that transfer doesn't pay off quickly, I get negative about it and want to move that player on. Sometimes that is at the detriment of an actual decent performance. I've already spoken about Bamford. Bamford was putting great underlying stats up, but he stopped scoring goals despite the numbers staying the exact same for shots on goal, shots on target, and the like. Now, because I was being disappointed because Leeds were one of the teams I was watching regularly during the previous season, I kept seeing him miss chances, not score goals, and it just disappointed me because I was there watching the game week in, game week out. So because he was so disappointing, even though he was doing better with the underlying stats than a lot of other strikers, I transferred him out because he wasn't scoring for me, despite the fact that he probably still was one of the better options in the game. Of course, straight after that, Bamford punished me by going on a run of scoring goals, and if I just stuck with him, I wouldn't have, one, lost the team value by selling him, and two, I would have got the points had I been more patient. Meanwhile, Ollie Watkins is a player I didn't own at all during the last season, but if you'd stuck with him, he slowly ticked over and got you points every single game week. Well, not every single game week, but he was very, very consistent in getting some points, which of course is much better than having the likes of, say, Richarlison, who had a pretty bad season. Now, we'll get on to later why I'd never brought Ollie Watkins into my side in a future tip, but my tip here is if you bring in a player because the underlying stats and the performances look like he could be a good asset, and especially if he is a cheaper price, potentially don't get rid of him just because he isn't getting you the points straight away. The next tip is for the beginning of the season, and although I've already released my FPL first draft video, do go check that out if you want to see what my first draft looks like. There is still some issues with it, which I've noticed, which comes to this point right here. Now, last season, I didn't stick with the known premiums, which is a tactic I used when I was more successful. What this means is sticking with players like, say, Bruno Fernandes, Kevin De Bruyne, Mohamed Salah, that we know are still at clubs that they're familiar with, and we have a good feeling that they should at least continue that form season in, season out. Instead, I got lured in by Timo Werner, who had moved from RB Leipzig to Chelsea for a pretty decent transfer fee and had a great goal scoring record in the Bundesliga. Now, unfortunately for me, I did get off him early enough where I did get some points because I stuck with him a little longer than most, but still, I got off him early enough, and some people had him even longer than I did, and let's be fair, he had a terrible season in front of goal. Now, of course, there are always going to be exceptions to the rule, and I would look to the likes of Zlatan Ibrahimovic as someone that came in and had a great first season when he came to Manchester United, and of course, Mohamed Salah, when he first went to Liverpool, had an amazing season too. So it is possible for unknowns to have a great season, but at least for the start of the season, I'm going to stick to what I know from previous seasons and go with some more known players, which means I probably should go and fix that first draft I've got. So before we continue this video, if you do want to have access to some of the stats that I may reference in my videos, articles and fixture ticker that will help you know if a team have a good run of fixtures, do check out top link in the description for Fantasy Football Hub. Sign up through that link and it does help support the channel, and it gives you all the access to the tools you need to get a good rank in the Fantasy Premier League. The next tip is to minimize hits. Now, I've taken way too many hits in my past two seasons, and I used to be rather hit averse because I'd look at my team and think I've picked these players for a reason, give them enough time until they are the desperate transfer I need to make with either one or two transfers. However, in recent seasons, because of my quest to try and reach the goals that I had before the last two seasons, I've taken lots of hits to get players in and get players out. Now, I'm not suggesting that hits aren't worth taking. Grealish is the person on the screen right now, and I should have taken a hit for Grealish because I had him when he got injured in game week 24 or 23 or somewhere around that region. And I had him in my side because in game week 29, Aston Villa had a game in a blank game week. However, he didn't play at all until game week 29. And I think he only started featuring in game week 35 or 36. Now, I got rid of him in game week 31, but that still meant I kept him for around 6 to 7 game weeks when I didn't need him. Now, a hit to take him out for someone else probably would have been worth it, considering he did nothing for me for that length of time. However, taking hits just because you're frustrated with a player isn't really necessary unless they really do need to leave your side. I will say this though, taking hits earlier on in the game probably is more cost efficient, because if you're taking out a player you really think isn't going to do well for you and you're right about that call, and you're bringing someone that will do significantly better, that -4 over the long term probably is worth it. But I do need to work on taking less hits. And finally, this is the point I was talking about when I said I'd never had Ollie Watkins. Now, bringing in Ollie Watkins would have probably been a great decision had I got rid of Grealish as soon as I'd heard about that injury I just talked about. So for this season, unless the injury is confirmed to be short-term only, and I need a strong confirmation from the managers in a press conference or something like that, I am going to be taking out every player that gets injured if I don't know how long they are out for. I'm not bothered if they are Bruno Fernandes or if they are a £4.5 million defender. I am not making the mistake I made last year of having a player like Grealish, who for some reason said Grealish is close to coming back, he's close to coming back, and then he was gone for almost 12 game weeks. So if a player is injured or potentially suspended, then this is when a -4 could be useful for your FPL season, and I'm not going to make that mistake again of holding on to injured players. Anyway guys, that is it for this video. Now for some of you, some of those tips may have been obvious, but I'm just putting them out there into the world because they're some of the things that I need to work on, and I'm sure they can help a lot of you with your FPL season. In the comments down below, let me know the top tips you have for how to play the game to get a good rank. I'm sure some of you out there have some amazing ranks to share. Let us know what you did to make sure you got hold of them. Do check out Fantasy Football Hub, top link in the description. Thank you so much to them for helping support the channel over the last season and this one. Hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to support the channel during this pre-season and to make sure you stay up to date with all the FPL content here. And with that being said, I've been JNO, this has been FPL Today, and remember, it's all about the game.